yesterday I told you something about the extension. Now, whenever you have a class, and if it is sealed or if it is finalized, it is not possible for us to extend the class. Now, if you want the class, if you want to add additional method to a class which is already sealed, you can go for the extension methods. Now, these extension methods allow you to add additional methods to the existing class, but you cannot add or you cannot modify the existing method. That means the existing behavior can't be changed. You can anytime add new behavior or new methods to the class. How do I add the extension method to a given class? If you take any class which is sealed, for example, int, even though you consider it as a structure, the structure itself is sealed. You can't inherit from this structure. I've not talked much about these structures. It is not possible to inherit from this structure. If you consider it as a class, in fact, the int is derived from system.object. So it is a class by itself, but it behaves a very different way. When you have the int, if you consider it as a class, if you want to extend its functionality by adding extra method, you can do that thing. How to extend the functionality of a sealed class? To do that, you write a static method. It must be present in a static class. I'll tell you what is a static class later. Then you write the name of the method and the return parameter as usual. Only thing is you have to use this and the class that you want to extend. In this case, I want to extend integer. So the first parameter must be this followed by the sealed class that you want to extend. In this example, it is integer that is getting extended. After this, whatever comes, it is not an issue. The first one must start with this followed by int. So let's try to achieve that thing. So I have the Visual Studio here and I have a class here. I'm going to just start a new class just to avoid the cluttering. Otherwise, a lot of things will be there. So I'm going to say my class, okay, my new class, whatever it is. There are few restrictions. When you try to do it, you must make the class as static. That's the first one. You have to make this class as static. What is the meaning of saying static class is all the methods inside this class and all the properties or all the fields inside this class are all static. So there is no instance method, there is no instance field, or there is nothing of instance. So you are just saying that all the contents are static. So in other words, it is not possible for you to derive a class out of this or derive an object out of this class. Now let's say I want to extend the integer method. So I'm going to just write some public method, say public static. Then I want to return a boolean value, and I'm going to say is say even. This you've already seen this kind of thing. Is even. This is the method. It looks like an ordinary method. Then I'm going to take an int parameter and I'm going to say yeah. Okay. This is the ordinary one. So I'm not writing the extension method now. How do you say that it is a even or not? So I'm going to divide it by 2. If it is equal to 0, it's going to be even. Otherwise, it will be odd. So that is simple as that. Okay. Now I go to my main method here. So I have a class there. Remember, this is made as a static class, and my method itself is a static method. So I can just call my new class, and I can call this method is even and n some number. I will get the value true or false. So that is it is not a big issue now. Now let's try to get a integer value. Let's say int k equal to 5. I'm going to supply that thing, and I'm going to just say cw, and I'm going to say my new class dot is even. I'm going to supply this k to this. Okay. You will definitely expect if I run this particular thing, you will notice. So I should have done it with the shift in that. Okay, so right. If I try to run this and stop it also, it will, because I am running it in the debug mode, it is not going to show me the result. I'll just stop. I will just add console dot read line in order for it to stop. Then I'm going to, and definitely you will notice that it is false. Okay, there's nothing that has happened here. Now if I take this k, and k is a seal type, and you get some methods associated with this. Okay. Now I want to extend. Now what is k? K is a object, or you can say it's a variable of type int. That means it has all the properties of integer. And you notice in integer they have compared to, equal to, hash code, get type, and so on. Only these methods are there. But in the integer as such, I don't have a method called as is even. Now I want to associate this method with the integers. So in other words, integer, when Microsoft is giving you the integer, it has sealed the integer. Only these properties are available for the integer. You can't have additional properties. They are the only properties which are available for an integer. Again, if you try to take this int itself and put a dot, you get a few methods. You don't get is, even, or is, or this kind of method is not there. Now what I want to do is, I want to extend that int class itself by adding one extra method to that. Now what I'm doing there is, I'm not inheriting. Now if you look at this thing over here, this is not inheriting from integer. I have not put something like int or something of this type. I'm not doing that. It's an ordinary class by itself. There is a method inside it. Only condition is the starting one must be written as this. So you write a method. I want to extend integer. So this is the parameter that I'm passing, the type of parameter, and I just use this in front of it. Now what happens if I go to the other side? Now if I put this dot here, you notice a strange thing over here. I get is even. Straightforward for the integer. Remember, it's a reference to the integer type. I have not declared any variable or anything of that type. I can straight away find out whether this k, and then call the method inside it. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to cut this thing, and I'm going to remove this line altogether. I'm going to paste it here, straight in this. Now if I run this, what you notice? You notice the same answer. Now what I have done in turn is, I am able to extend a integer class altogether. This is called as extension, method extension. You can take any seal class, extend it by adding a method. What does that mean? You can take a string class. You know very well, string is altogether a seal class by itself, a finalized class. You can think of extending it. You can add a method called as is palindrome to do this. How do I achieve that particular thing? How do I extend a string class? To extend a string class, again you have to start with a method. Remember, you have to make it as static. The static word is required because of this thing. This word says in front of the class, the static says that all the methods, all the variables, whatever I am using, all the fields that I am using, everything is static. There is no instance part here. So here what I am saying is, let's say I want to check whether the given string is boolean. So I'm saying given string is a palindrome. I'm just going to say is palindrome, and I'm going to take a string yes. Then assume that I have written the full logic. Then I'm going to say, okay, this is assume that I have written the code here. The logic is there. Logic for palindrome is available here. Okay, it goes here, and finally I'm going to just say it is true. Now, how do I associate it with the string? So I'm going to just take a string here. So I'm going to say string, say str equal to say now if I have to call this thing, so how do I call this now? Now it is not this, so I have my new class, it is there inside my class, my new class. Where is this method? It is a static method. So I'm going to call this as is palindrome, and it expects me to supply a string, and I'm going to do it, and the code will definitely run. If you run this thing, you're going to say it is a true value, because I'm directly sending a true here. So it is going to be a straightforward thing. Now I want to associate it with the string. What do I do with this? So to associate it with the string, we'll go here, and then I'm going to say this is this in front of it. Okay, if the class is still, remember the class itself must be still. You go here, and you get all the methods, and I'm going to say these palindrome. Okay, I don't get confused. Okay, I will just remove this from. I will remove this word, this from here. Now it just becomes an ordinary one. Now if I go, I hope that say str. If I say is, you have only one method called is normalize. There is nothing called as is palindrome. That method won't come with the string. Now what is that I am doing here is I have created a ordinary method which is static. Only requirement is you have to put this in front of it. When you say this, I am extending this particular class. So that is the meaning of it. So now if I go here, and then if I say str dot is palindrome, you notice that method is directly available to me. This will result to be either true or false based on the logic that has been given over here. This is what is called as extending a method. You can extend any method. Remember, you cannot override a method. That's not allowed. You can change the logic of the existing method. So you can't say that, okay, there is some method called as, you're just saying there is this method called as is normalized. Now you can't change that. It's not allowed. The class is saved. There is no extension for this method. There is no override for the method. You can add additional method if you feel that that is not available, or that method must be there within it. So you can take any class and just extend it. Now this particular example, what I am trying to do over here is I am trying to generate the next random number. You know very well integer can store the value, but there is nothing called as get a random number. I want to generate a random number through integer itself. So I extend the integer with this. Then I supply the seed value for that, the maximum value for that. I take that seed and I generate the next random number within the range. So starting from the seed, within the range, any random number is picked up and given to it. So for example, you notice over here, I have this is the class name. I have I is equal to 8 and j is equal to I dot I is an integer, next random number within the range of 20. Now this is this one is the current one, that is I value. The other one is the maximum value. So in other words, starting from 8 to 20, generate a random number. Okay. Let's look at this keyword. Remember, this keyword behaves differently in the extension method. Now, I'm not talking about the extension method. In general, what is the meaning of this keyword? First important thing, this is associated with the instance, not with the class. So, you cannot get this inside a class. Anything that is associated with the class can't use that word this. Anything that is associated with the object can at any time use the word this. So this comes only in the object, it can't come in the class. What is the meaning of that? So let me go here. This is my started class. I don't want to use the extension or anything. I just create a ordinary class, a public static int add numbers, and I'm going to take int x, int y. This is a ordinary thing, and it just returns x plus y. Now, because of this word static, this method is associated with the class. It will not come with the instance of the class. In particular, I can't create an instance of this class because of this word static. I've told the class itself is a static. There is no derivation for it. Now, I can't think of using this dot. That's not available. Okay. What is the reason? The reason is this is a static method. Static methods are not part of the instance object. So this keyword is not available there. Let me go here and let me add one more class. In order to avoid the clutter, I'm just going to add one more class over here. And I'm going to just call this as my inst class. Now this is an ordinary class. I have a ordinary method public int add numbers, and I have int x, int y. Okay. Now look at this. This is available. Why? I am writing a instance method. It is not static. When you use that word static, static will just take it to the class. It is not part of the object. So when you are part of the class, that this word won't come there. So always remember that this is there with the object. It can't be there with the class. So that is your thing. I can say this dot something. I don't have anything over here. Suppose say if I just create int one more x here. Now if you just say I'm going to write a constructor here. Okay, I'm going to write a constructor. The constructor takes int x. Now I say x is equal to x. What will happen now? So this x is there, which is small case, which is the parameter, and internally x is there. So which is there? By the way, I just forgot. I'd like to apologize. Yesterday I told you that this methods are public. I think written that thing. Please make a method as private. Okay. I was actually fiddling with the interface. Methods by default are private. They are not public. I just remembered that. When you write a method, default accessibility for a method is private. Method is public only if it is inside an interface. If you write a method inside an interface, what is the meaning of if you write an interface? If you declare a method name inside an interface, it is automatically public. Inside a class, it is just private. Now, let's go back to the here, and I'm going to create an instance of this. I'm not interested in all these things, so I'm going to just say my instance class C is equal to new my instance class, and it just says 10. Now, what is the value of x now? What's the value of x? Okay, I'm going to print the value here. Let's get the value here. Public, I'm not going to write the property. Public, say int get x. I'm not going to write a property, even though the property would have been there. So I want to get the value of x and show it there. So here in the constructor, I get the value. This is a constructor for the class. I get the value of x and I assign it to the field here, and I want to just retrieve it. So I create a class C, which is of type my instance class. Then I want to just write CW, and I'm going to say C dot getIs. Okay. Then as usual, because I want to stop, console dot read line. So what is the value of x now? So what is that I'm doing? I'm taking this 10 and I'm calling this constructor, assign it to the field of this class, and in this method I just output the value. Now what is the value of this? So if I run this particular program, what is the value that you expect to see? Let us compile it and you notice it is 0. It is not 10. Don't think that it is going beyond the screen and other. So I will just take 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, some number. Run it again. It is still 0. Okay, what is happening now? What is the problem with this code? Now in this code, you said x is equal to x, but you intended to say that this x is this one and the other x is this one. If you notice here, if you just put the if you just click here and just keep it here, you will notice a mark here. The Visual Studio says that it will resolve. Visual Studio try to resolve it to the all the variable references. And you notice that what the C# compiler is thinking is this x you got it here, for that x itself you are trying to highlight it. Now I will just make it as capital X here to just highlight that thing. Now if you notice here, you will get I will make this as also capital. Now if I keep the cursor here, you notice that these two are highlighted. If I keep the cursor here for a small fraction, you notice, I'll just keep the cursor here, you will notice that it will highlight this and the other one. It is resolving it. Now when you say this is x, small x, this is also small x, and the other one is also small x, in order to avoid the confusion. What you notice now is local variable, you know very well, local variable has the highest precedence. So in this case, the local variable is x itself. Okay, and in fact, if you just keep the cursor over here, Visual Studio directly says that why do you want to do this, execute this step? You are, after all, you are assigning the same value to itself. What is so great about this thing? So this is what is happening in the constructor. You might have got the 10 or 345 or anything, but instead of assigning that 10 or 345 to this field, you are actually you are ending up in assigning it to itself. So how to resolve the local variable with the instance variable? In this case, you use the verb this to say that this time I mean something else. So I'm saying here is this dot, what is the dot? It should have resolved it. It has resolved, most probably it has resolved. It should have resolved it. Sometimes it gets stuck. You get 3, 4, 5, 6. Sometimes it won't, it will still show the same error. Now if I just keep it here, now you notice this one is only two things are getting highlighted. If I keep it here and keep it for a slightly longer time, you notice these other three, I hope you'll be able to see that, other three are getting resolved. Now that's the reason why we are using the this parameter. So this is used to resolve the instance variable from the local parameter. Okay. So let's go back. In this example, you can see over here, that I have a name and name here. This dot name is refers to the class name. The other one is the local variable. Okay. I have given you an example there. This is the same example that is being shown there. A few things about the this. This keyword refers to the current instance. Next one, it can be used to access the member variables. The last one, static constructor and members. That is the static methods will not use that this pointer because that this pointer is not available with anything that deals with the static. It is not available. Okay. In Visual Studio, we can use this to get the IntelliSense. That is the other advantage. If I just go to the Visual Studio, if I want to know how many methods are available here, I can just say this dot, and if at all any methods are there, I will be able to get that thing. I don't have a very large collection here, so I will not be able to show that thing. But if you just say this dot, you notice at least get text, get type, get, and all those things. Now all these methods are there because you know very well, whenever you create your own class, automatically all your classes are inherited from system.object. That's a base. Even though I have not told anything about, I have not said that it is inherited from this object class, I don't have to tell that thing. By default, any object, anything that any class that you create automatically get inherited from that, and all these methods that you get when you put this dot is all those methods which are inherited from the system.object. These are directly coming from that. Okay. Let's go back to the slide now. Let's come back to the next part, that is the constructor. What is a constructor? Constructor is a special method. Always remember, it's a method, it's not something which is strange thing. It's a method like all the other, but this method has a very different usage. And it is used for instantiating a class, instantiating an object out of the class. It can be used for performing the custom initialization. You can overload the constructor. If a class, in the class, if you don't specify the constructor, the C# will provide a constructor. How you have the Java, if you don't provide it, the default constructor is automatically provided to you by the compiler. But if you provide your own constructor, default is pulled out. The same thing is true in Java. Then I'm not going to talk about the structures. In the structures, there is a default constructor, but you can't override a default constructor. Whereas in your ordinary class, you can even override the default constructor. You can create a parameterless constructor that does something different. It is possible, but in the structure, it is not possible. And again, it is not possible to create your own default constructor in this structure. You remember that thing. Let's look at how do I create a constructor. By now you are already familiar. To create a constructor in Visual Studio, the syntax or the idea remains this is called a snippet. It is CPOR. Double tap it, you will get the constructor. So that is the Visual Studio way of getting it. It will automatically do it. Okay. You can overload the constructor. What is the meaning of that? You can create a constructor with that takes the parameter, that may not take the parameter, you can do anything. Okay, that is called as overloading. You can overload the constructor. In this case, there is a constructor, there is a class called as point, there is a constructor, this is the default constructor. You are overriding the default constructor provided by the C#. So you this is the ordinary one. You just assign x equal to 0, y is equal to 0. There is a one more constructor that takes two parameters, and you just assign the value. Then the remaining part is not of any interest. Let's look at the other one. This thing I have already shown you. If you have a properties and if you want to initialize the properties within the class, you can initialize the properties directly in the constructor itself. Now how do I do it? So let's look at the same one. I have a property here. So I will just create a property. I think I am in the caps lock. Okay. Okay. I will just say okay, so I have few things over here. You notice that even though I have overridden a constructor, you have a constructor which takes the one integer, other one is the ordinary constructor. Let me go to the method here, and I want to create a new instance of that. Okay. So I'm going to say my inst class C is equal to, this is an object I'm going to say, new my inst class. This is the one, you have it. You also have a way in which you can assign the values. These two are because of the constructor that you have here, either this one or the one that takes the integer. However, you can go here, class here, and you can do this. You can say yes name. That there is no constructor. Look at here. There is no constructor that actually takes this string. That constructor itself is not there. But still I am able to initialize that. This trick is possible only with the properties. When you want to create the object, if you want to do it, it is straightforward, you can do it. So I can just say this, or I can say piece paid. I can put it in any order I want. Say 1, 2, 3.45. Then I can say one more thing, register number equal to 1, 2, 3. You will notice that these are not there. The constructor is not written like this, but you are directly initializing it. So the properties are automatically initialized. What about this one? Is it possible? Remember, I'll just cut this thing. There is this constructor that takes the integer. That's my second constructor that takes the integer x1. This constructor is there that takes x1. Okay. Can I call that constructor first? So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say this constructor is there. Now can I do this? So look at what is that I'm doing. I'm calling that constructor. Apart from that, I'm straight away initializing it. So that this constructor is called. This constructor is called. Apart from that, I'm initializing all the properties. It's allowed. Also, you can do this. What does this mean? You're calling the default constructor. You're calling this constructor. It may do some steps there. I'm not really interested in that. Apart from that, you are initializing the properties. Again, note that it can be done only with the properties or a field which is publicly exposed. So if you expose a field as a public, again that's not advisable thing to expose a field with the public accessibility. But if you try to do it, it is possible. So either you can use the default constructor, or without calling the constructor you can do it. Now, this step is same as the previous step. It's one and the same. Or if you have any other constructor, you can call the constructor, then go for the initialization. We have one more concept called as constructor initializer. Now this concept is there in other programming language also. You can, from one constructor, you can call other constructor. So it is possible. So from within one constructor, you can call the other constructor, then execute the step. So how do I do that then? Let's go to the source here. Now I have two constructor here. This is an ordinary constructor. Now if somebody calls this ordinary constructor, I want the second constructor to be called, then I want to do something that is there within this constructor. So when suppose say I'm going to get rid of this. That's not really required. So here I'm trying to call a constructor. Now when somebody calls this default constructor, I want this class to call the other constructor and come back to it. How do I do it? Now for this constructor, I'm going to say this followed by, there are two options are there, I will say 20. You can supply any other values also. So what is the meaning of this? When this constructor is called, I want the other constructor to be called with the value 20. Then come back and do the work of this constructor. So it goes to this constructor, then it comes back to the second one, it goes here, comes back to the first one. Okay, let's look at this in action. So I'm going to just put a breakpoint here to see what is going on. Okay. So I will press F5. The keyboard shortcut is F11, I think. I can't do that. F11. I'm there here. I have to use the this one. The progress is step into is F11. If I put F11, I think the recording will go. I'm going to say step into. Now I'm trying to call this method. Let me go to the class. So from here, I have shifted to the my class. So this is my class. From here, I was here. So I went to my class now. Now, as usual, you can expect, okay, I was calling this default constructor without any parameter, and it has also stopped at the default parameter. Now a strange thing happens. Now if I step into, you notice a strange thing. It went directly to the other constructor, and this 20 was supplied to x1. In other words, it is going to the other constructor, asking the other constructor, you create it first, then once this constructor does it work, there is nothing, no steps I have written it here. Now once this constructor completes its step, it comes back and then starts performing its work. So that is what is happening. It goes from this constructor to the other constructor, then goes to the next constructor. Again, I can change this to something else. So for example, I can say public, I will say CTR so that I can reduce the typing. So let's say this one takes 3 parameter, or this takes 2 parameter int x, y, int z here. So takes 3 parameter. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say this dot say x1 and 34, let's say 56. Okay. Now what is that I'm doing? I got x1, that x1 itself I'm passing it to the next constructor. So this constructor will get x1, that x1 itself is passed to the other one, other goes. Now let's try to run this one, see what is it going to do now. So I'm here now in the main program, I'm trying to invoke this, so I will go to the next step. As usual, it is calling the default constructor. Now this default constructor indirectly calls the other constructor and supplies this 20 to the other constructor. Now what this other constructor will do is, instead of performing its work, it just says, I'm going to give this 20 that I obtained from here. I'm going to give that 20 and I'm going to supply 2 more additional value to the next constructor. So it goes to the other constructor. Assume that the other constructor does something. So I'm going to just go through the steps here. So it goes here. You can see this arrow that says your steps. So it goes, completes that constructor. The last constructor is completed. It comes back to this one. It does this, then finally it comes back to the constructor. So this is called as constructor initializer. You can initialize the constructor. Again, you can ask the base class. Suppose if you have derived from other class, if you derive something from the base class, you can ask the current constructor to call the method or the constructor of the base class. Let me try to put one class here. So let's say I want to add one more ordinary class here. I think I'm running the program. Let me stop that program. Let me go here and I'm going to add one class. And I'm going to call this as my base class. You can give any name. Now in my base class, this is my base class. I have a constructor. Okay, it does something. I'm not really interested. You can have a parameter constructor also. Now I will go to my instance class here. Then I'm going to say this one will extend out of my base class. Okay. Now what is that I'm doing? So I'm going to say that I won't call the current constructor. I want to call the base constructor. In the base, I have only one method, so that's why when I do it, I don't have other constructor. I don't have other constructor. Suppose if I had one more constructor in my base that takes, let's say, a floating value k. Then if I go to my instance here, then if I start typing base, I would have got two options. Which one you would like to call? Any one I can call it. I can say I'm going to call 3.445 F is to make it exclusively a floating point. Otherwise, the default is double. So I'll get a error now. So let's run this thing. Now when I run this one, as usual, I'm there here in my main. I'm going to step into it. So when I step, it will take me to my instance class, and it tries to call its method. Now there is this base now. When I step again, what happens is it just shifts to my base class, and it is trying to call this method with the value that I have supplied there. So it calls this base method, then comes back. It completes the base method. So you are here, so you can see that thing. It completes its method. Then it comes back to my class from where it started. It then carries on with its work. Okay. So this is how it goes. So we have the constructor initializer. Either you can use this or you can use the base. One and the same. You can use again base has to be used if you want to call the base constructor. Now in this example, I'm trying to call the other one by using colon and this. Remember, it must be put like that. You can't write this inside and write the bracket. By the way, you can't. There is a lot of difference by writing these two steps. They are completely different one. If you take this base and come into the class. Now I'm into the constructor. Now if I start doing this, that is a very different thing altogether. And it immediately says it's not possible. Why it is not possible? What is the reason? Look at the logic. Now this one, what is this class? This class is inherited out of the base class. That means if I want to create an object of this class, then remember this class is extending out of the base class. So if I want to create an object of this class, that means the base object must be already available. Then I have to take that and expand it and make the current class. This current class is extending out of this base class. So if I want to instantiate this class, the base class must be first created, then extend it out. Now what happens if I enter into this constructor? If I enter into this constructor, that means to say that I have already started creating my current object. It is not possible. Why it is not possible? To create a current object, the base object must be created, then you are expanding it and creating your class. So this one, you notice over here, this is an extension of the base. So base must be there, then only you can think of extending the base. Now here what you are saying is, as base is not there, I am trying to extend it. That means you don't have the platform and you are trying to build the class or the object out of it. It just says that it is not possible. The minute you have entered into this constructor, that means the base is already there, that object is already created, and it just says that this is not valid here. If you step into your constructor, that's the end of it. The same thing is true if you try to say this and something of this type. This is gone. Why it is gone? This is because you are saying that the default constructor will create it. If the default constructor is creating, the other constructor will say, then why am I supposed to create it? Anyhow, you are creating it, you take care of it. In this case, what is the difference? Here, if you write what is happening, you might have noticed before it enters this step, it goes to the other one. That means this step says, I am not creating anything, you create it first. Then I will add my extra things to it. So if you enter here, that means to say that you are creating it. Then if you call the other method and say, now you created it, it will say that you have already created it. Take care of your object. I won't change anything out of it. So this is the meaning. So before you step into your constructor, you have to ask the other constructor or the base constructor to create the object. Once it has created that object, then you can take that object, make some manipulation, then give it to the client side. So this step is very crucial. It comes only here, not inside the constructor. If you try to call it inside the constructor, that's not valid. It's not logically correct to call something within the constructor. You can't call from within the constructor. You can't ask one more constructor. That kind of outsourcing is not possible. If you want to do it directly, you have to do it within before calling the constructor. Now this step, I think I've already told you how to call the base method and supply it. We have one more concept called as private constructor. Now why do you use a private constructor? You answer. This can be answered. This is, oh my god, the full row is not there. You are there. Yeah, what is the use of private constructor? You have used this private constructor in some case. Somewhere you use the private constructor. I can give you a hint. In the last semester you used the private constructor. I think last semester. Yes. Again, I will tell you it is not in my class. In some other class you use the private constructor. Use that private constructor. Yes. Next. Yes. Diksha, yes, that's it. You don't hide her, you see. Yeah, this one. Benson. Yes, why do you want anybody? Now it is gender. Why do you require a private constructor? Yes. Why do you require what is the meaning of saying private constructor? What's the meaning of private constructor? Yes? The constructor is not exposed out to the world. So, what is the use? Yes? If you don't want somebody to instantiate your class, if you don't want somebody to create an object out of that class, just create a private constructor. If you create a constructor as private, what will happen is it is not possible for them to instantiate that object. So they can't create an object out of your class. Then you may say that what is the use of such a class if you can't create an object out of this. Suppose if you have a utility class. Have you used this utility class? At least you have been using this Visual Basic at least. Have you used this class, Math. Yes. Now this has all utility class. Remember, I am not creating an object out of math. I am calling all the static methods. All of them are static methods. None of them are the instance method. Now this is called as a utility class. It helps you to do some mathematical function, but you don't expect somebody to create an object out of this. So how do you prevent somebody from creating an object? Just declare the constructor as private. So when you create a constructor as private, what will happen is the other side will not be able to call the constructor. When they can't call the constructor, they can't get the object out of it. So your work is all done. So you want them to use your class that has some static method, but you don't want them to instantiate that thing. The polite way of saying it is, my constructor is private. So let's look at a simple example of that type. So I will go here and just add a new class here. Then I'm going to just say my utility class. My utility. My utility. Okay. I have a static method. A method which is a very obvious method that returns x plus y. Now if I just give this one and ask them, okay, you have a utility class, please use this class. If you want to do heavy duty mathematics, you just call, get rid of this. So if you want to do some heavy duty mathematics, I have a utility class. Just call add numbers and then supply to some numbers to this, and it's going to do all the number crunching work, or it's going to do a useful thing on its own, because there is no need for instantiating an object. You just take two numbers or you take two parameters. For example, currency conversion. You don't need to create an object. You just say which is your currency, which is the other type of currency, just convert it and give. There is no need for creating an object and doing it, or length conversion or this kind of thing. All utility classes. Now the problem is, if I try to give this thing to somebody and if that person for curiosity, if he just says that t is equal to new my utility, this will break my analogy. I don't expect that person to do this and then try to search for a method, or then try to figure out what this person is trying to do. I just want to prevent that person from instantiating an object. How do I do that thing? I have to force him or her not to call this method. Now this is your constructor. So what I can do? I can go here to my utility, and I'm going to create a constructor here. I will use the shortcut. Constructor, and by default constructors are public. I'm going to just say this is a private constructor. So I will say I have a constructor, I have a default constructor, but only I can call it. I'm not allowing you to call that constructor. Now what's going to happen now? Now if this person tries to call this particular thing, immediately he gets an error message saying that I can't access it. You say that inaccessible because of the protection level. That constructor is protected. I can't see that constructor. It's hidden. So what does that mean? Politely you are saying that I'm not allowing you to create an object out of my class. So the private constructors are used. When you don't want somebody to instantiate your object, just create a private constructor and leave it. They will not be able to do it. Now one question I'm going to ask in the examination. I told you class is constructor is a method. Right in the beginning when I started the class I told you that it is possible to extend a method. Now the question is, can I extend this and add my own constructor? Look at that. Just go back in the beginning of the class. What I did was integer didn't have is odd number. So I said I'm going to add one extension method for integer and I'm going to create an extension method. String didn't have is palindrome. I said I'm going to add my method to it. Now this person says I'm not going to give you a constructor and my constructor is private. Can I create a overloaded constructor and then create an extension out of it? This question will be asked for your examination. So be prepared for that answer. Is it possible? Remember, constructor is also a method. Okay, I am not overriding this thing. The person said my default constructor is private. Take it, no problem. Can I put a public overloaded constructor and get something out of it? That's the question now. Is it possible to extend a constructor itself? So now that you answer it, by the way, class rep, you have given only the time for theory exam. There is a practical exam that needs to be done. Okay, and also if Dean has asked me to submit the CAT book along with the first internal, that is first assignment marks. Those who are doing the mobile and ASP MB3, there is no need. I have already told you as promised, it is 10 unconditionally given. But for those who have opted for the ordinary web form, please show the interface to me by next week. Okay. So that has to be given to the dean, it seems. Others, you are safe. There is no need to show the first interface as promised. You will be given unconditional marks for these two things. Those who have opted for the other one, you can do it. And also, I heard that you are combining ASP.NET with what was that? Testing and the other one. If you want to get 100% marks, even if it is MBC or a mobile or anything, you will have to show me the test result. That's the condition you have to follow. How do I create a test? Just say add a new test, follow the test, the rest thing it will guide you with it. Okay, add a test, it will say what type of test you want to do it. I want to create a basic unit test. Just say create it. It's going to create a new project for you, and it's going to use the value. You can read the full story here. It's going to create. It's going to say what is the name of the project that you want to create. It will create a separate project for you in the same solution. It's going to create a project for you. In that you have to insert it. It will create everything for you. That is true. Even though I have not talked about, I should have gone for that. I will go back to my subject. It's not my issue. So this is what is happening. Now look at the other use of it. Now you have what you have done here is you have a private class, private constructor, and you have a public overloaded constructor. So this public overloaded constructor in turn draws a private constructor. It is also possible. These are the two possible scenarios that you can think of using. The next type of constructor is a static constructor. Now again recall, one only when the word comes static, it is only the class. If you want to write a constructor for the class itself, then you can use the static constructor. Now what is the meaning of saying writing a constructor for a class? When a class is loaded into the memory, or when it is referenced for the first time, if you want to do some housekeeping on the class itself, you can call create a static constructor. Remember, static constructor are not part of the instance objects, they are part of the class. So when you create a static constructor, the static constructor is called only by CLR. Others can't call that thing. Why? It is the CLR, common language runtime, that loads your class into the memory. So it is only the CLR that knows how to call the constructor. Okay, so when you try to call or when you write a static constructor, the static constructors are only part of the class, they are not part of the object. So anybody can't call this constructor. That means nobody can say my class equal to new something and try to activate it. It's not possible. Only CLR can do it. And the other one is you can't have an overloaded constructor. What is the meaning? You can't expect the CLR to supply some values to it. You can't tell the CLR, okay, supply the student name, register number, and other things to the class. CLR will say, I'm not going to do it. I know how to load the class. That's the thing. I'm not going to supply any extra parameter to it. So you cannot have a overloaded static constructor. The next one is you can't say I'm going to create a static constructor and I'm going to hide it from the CLR and I'm going to make it as private. It's not allowed. Okay, then the CLR will say if you hide it, you leave your class with yourself. I'm not going to load that thing into memory. So there is no accessibility, or you don't have the public, private, or anything. It's just the name of the class and the word static in front of it. Okay, so this is how it looks like. Suppose if you have a class called my class, you are just using the word static, no private, no public, nothing, no parameters here, and the name of the class. It is straightforward writing. Now you notice a strange thing here. I have a static my class, I have a public my class. Look at these two things. I told you that a constructor is a method, and if you look at these two methods, and I have already told you, the return value is not counted in the method signature. So if you look at these two things, the method signature is same. This is also my class without any parameter. It also has my class without any parameter. That means you have two methods with the same name. In general, that is not allowed. So in a class, you can't have two methods with the same name, with the same number of parameters. If you want to have a same name, then either the type of the parameter must be different or the number of parameters are different. That is called as overloading. If you want to have the same name, overload it and put something else. Now this is not overloading. You look here. Both of them have the same name. Both of them are not taking any parameter. Then how is it allowing you to do it? Now in this case, both of them are not working in the same context. This is part of the class. This one is part of the object. So look at here. At no point an object can call this one, and definitely you know very well the class is not least bothered about the instance. So both are there at separate work. Even though their signature looks same, both are not there in the same level. One is there at the class level, other one is there at the object level. So that's the reason this is allowed. This thing is called, this part is called only by the CLR. This can be called by any one who wants to create an object out of it. And again, notice the difference here. Nothing is written here as public or private, nothing is written. It is just made static. So this thing can be called only by the CLR. Let's look at a very quick example on that. I'm going to just create a, you notice that it has created a test project here, unit test. This is what I have done. This is your project. This is the assertion method. You then take care of this one. Am I using VB? So let's go here and add one more method. Then I'm going to say my static demo. I create a constructor. As usual, I'm going to copy this whole thing. What's the difference between the static and this one? This is definitely not allowed. I'm just going to put static. That's it. It is static. There is no. You are not doing anything. You're just calling that thing. Now let's look at the main here. I think. I will go here. My static demo. Okay, I'm going to say st equal to new my static demo. Okay, I want to know when that method is called. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I will go to, I don't want this utility anymore. Let's just save it, and I will go here, and in my, where is my static? In my this I'm going to say int x equal to, I can't do int x here. Remember the reason why I can't write int x directly here. Why can't I write int x here? Why can't I write int x here? It is not static. Okay, so you have to say static. I want something to come here. Okay, I will write CW. I think hopefully I will. Okay, you are in static constructor. Okay, constructor. That's more. Okay. I will just say non-static. Run that. Okay, I want a breakpoint here. I put that line because I want a breakpoint at this. I want to know when this step is called. So let's run this thing with the breakpoint at this point. Okay, here I'm trying to refer it. I'm going to run this thing. I want to stop at that point. Okay, so I'm calling the constructor now of the class. So when that thing is called, so it will take some time. Run that thing. Okay, now I'm there at this step. I'm going to go here, and you notice, remember, it has not called the static. It is not called the static. I was trying to call this thing. So when I say st is equal to new static, what is the meaning of that? I am saying here that I want to create an object. I want you to create an object by looking at the blueprint which is provided to you. So this is your blueprint that has all the declaration of the class. Okay, so I am saying that to the compiler that I want you to create an object by looking at that blueprint. So when I call this one, this is what I am saying. I want an object. You just look at the blueprint and get me an object. Now if it has to go through that blueprint, first of all it has to load that blueprint into the memory. So this is what is happening. So when you try to call this constructor, first thing it will do is it will load that class into the memory. Then looking at that class, it will create an object out of it. So it is now trying to call the your static constructor. So it calls the static constructor. Then Once that static constructor is over, that means it has completed, it has the blueprint with it. By looking at the blueprint, it will create your object. So this is what is happening. One important thing to be noted is the static constructor is called, always it is called first. If you refer to a class, the static constructor of the class is always called first. All the others things are called later. First the static constructor, then either you have the static method or a static initializer or anything, everything it will be called later. Static constructor first, then all the static method, static declaration, whatever, constant, whatever you have been using, that all the statics are going there. Then your instance will come. Okay. Now there is the other reason why we use this static constructor. Now suppose if I want to instantiate a class by looking at the value of something else. For example, if you're writing a program like bidding, online bidding or something of that type. Now you want to start the initial bid value based on somebody others are already quoted for that. Based on that, you want to start the initial bid. Now every object that you create out of this class must have that initial bid. Now that initial bid value depends on the current situation. Okay, somebody might have given the initial quote as 1 lakh rupees. Then you may say that I am going to start the bid from 1 lakh rupees. If maybe on the other day, if the bidding is for 50,000, then you can't start with 1 lakh because the first bid has come at the 50,000. So looking at the other value, you want to start or you want to instantiate something, or you want to create a constant which can be used by all the objects. So how do I do that? In the constructor, the static constructor of the class, I assume that there is a static method for some other class. So you just look at what is the current bit value, take that value, based on that you set your constants. So remember, this ID must be static. It will not be, it is not the static. So this is, assume that I would have created a constant, or you can create a private or anything. So this ID is based on the value of some other class or some other things. So when the class is loaded, remember it is not the object. When the class itself is loaded, you want to have some values that are fixed based on the environment. In that case, you can go for that. That is the static constructor. Few things about it. There can be only one static constructor because you can't overload it. The next one is static constructor should be without parameter, because static constructor is called by the CLR. It won't supply any parameters to you. You can't have the access parameter because it has to be called by the static constructor. There is one important thing that you must remember. If you made a mess out of this static constructor, suppose if you make a mistake in this static constructor, when you call this static constructor, if something goes bad, you are doing some calculation, and if something goes bad in this static constructor, very, very extremely careful. It is. It looks like very juicy picture here. You create a static constructor and do it. If you made a mess here, and if the exception is thrown from the static constructor, nothing will work from that point. Remember, if when loading a class, if there is an exception, the CLR will not load that class. If the class is not loaded, if you have any other reference for the object of that class or anything, everything will suddenly collapse. So you must be very careful with this. Now let me highlight that thing. I'm going to remove this thing, and I'm going to just throw an exception. I'm going to just say throw a new exception. I'm going to say a new exception, and I'm going to say this is for testing. I'm just throwing an exception here in this static constructor. Now this is going to be a terrible thing that can happen. When the class itself is getting loaded, something goes bad. Now the class itself is not loaded. Any references for out of that class, everything will go down. So be careful. It may look like okay, I can create a class based on that. Okay, I can do a bidding and other things. When you look at it, you get a juicy picture there. But when you really try to do it and something goes bad, everything from that point onwards, everything will start, will collapse. Then you will have a lot of error message to deal with it. Now, when you try to run this, a strange thing happens. You are dead now. So the class itself is not loaded. Everything goes bad from that point. It's all gone from this point because it just says that I don't know what happened. I can't load that class altogether. I can't create an object. I can't call a static method. I can't call anything out of that class. The class itself is not coming into the memory. In other words, I can't get the blueprint itself. So if there is no blueprint, I can't do anything out of that. So be careful whenever you are writing a static method. Put extra effort and see to it that you don't raise an error even by mistake. Mistake at constructor, static constructor is too dangerous for that. Okay. We go maybe if we can get rid of this one. This is the destructor. That is much faster. What is a destructor? You are already familiar. Destructor is something that is used to clean up the work. Usually it is used for bookkeeping activities, to close the open files that you are open in your C++, you are usually saying that to retrieve the memory that was allocated to your object and give it back to the free space. So you took some memory from your heap and reference is over. It's your duty to remove that value or whatever value of whatever memory you got it from the heap, return it back to the free space. This is what you are doing, but that is not the usual reason why we are using the destructor. Destructor is used for something else. But before we look into why the destructor is used, let's look at how the destructor is written. Like your C++, if you have a class called as employee, you start with the tilde as usual, name of it. Destructor is only one destructor. You know nothing called a overloading destructor and other things. That kind of thing is not there. Knowledge itself is not there. And you write the code here. Now, when you write this destructor, the C# compiler automatically converts this step into a step of this type. It creates a override for its finalized method. So when you write that step, you don't have to write this step. The compiler automatically writes an override for its finalized method and then uses try catch. And finally calls, you know very well what is this finally. Finally it calls its finalized method. Okay, so this is what is happening. So for example, now this is just an example, that's not a real use of it. So you are just trying to print destructor is called. Now very important thing, you don't have the control when the destructor is called. So that is very important thing. Okay, like your C++, the destructor is non-deterministic. What is the meaning of saying non-deterministic? There is, you can't say that, okay, destructor will be called. Okay, I have removed all the references, now the destructor will be called. It is not. The destructor will be called by the garbage collector. And it is dependent on the mood of the garbage collector. When it wants to call the destructor, it will call on its own. You can't force the garbage collector and you can't say the garbage collector, you collect it now. It says, I'm not free now. When I'm free, I will go and collect it. So you can't predict when your destructor will be called. Now, if you really want to have a predictable destructor, that means you want to call immediately, okay, I have completed the reference, I want immediately the destructor to be called, then you can implement a interface called as iDisposable. There are a few things you must note. One is, in the entire .NET global community, the interfaces are marked as I. That is the, it is not a requirement of .NET, but it is generally understood. All the interfaces are starting with I enumerable, I disposable. I says that it is a interface. Now what if you want to write a interface without I? There is no problem. The only thing is possibly you are the only one on earth who is writing that kind of name. So others are following that. There is no restriction. You can use any name for an interface. But the general, if you refer anybody, any developer, if you look at their method, it is starting with I, just to say that it's an interface. It is not a class. Okay. Now, the next one is there is no guarantee that it will be called in a specific time. Only guarantee is before you shut down before your application is pulled out of the memory, definitely it will be called. So that is for sure. If not now, if not after half an hour, if not after 1 hour, when your application goes out of the memory, when it does, everything is pulled out, it definitely the destructor is called. But it is you can't guarantee it. If you want to have a guarantee, then go for iDisposable. Now the next question is, why am I supposed to call a destructor? I told you that all the .NET applications, all of them are completely managed by CLR. Like how you have your Java application managed by JVM, entire lifespan of your object is managed by CLR. Then why do I have to call a destructor? If CLR is managing everything, what is the need for me to call a destructor? Remember, when anybody says that your code is managed by JVM or your code is managed by CLR, what they mean to say is the memory is managed by them. So the memory that you have taken from the free space or from the heap, that is managed by them. The files that you have opened, the connection that you made with the database, that is not their problem. So if you want suppose if your object or your class has made an open connection with your database, then it is your duty to close that connection before garbage collection occurs. So don't expect CLR to go to the database and knock its door and say that, okay, close the connection, that person has gone out. So it is not its work, so it is your work. So if you have opened a file, close it. If you have opened any port where you are doing, or if you are connected to a critical resource, close it. Why do you have to close it? You know, you studied something about the operating system, and you know very well if you are trying to use a critical resource, and if you are not very careful, what will happen is you will end up in a deadlock. Many others are waiting for it, and everybody starts ending up in a cycle, and you end up in a deadlock. So when you are using a critical resource, use it and just leave it. So the one is the file that you open. If you are opening a file and if you lock that file, no others can use it. The other one is the database. You know very well, a database has a limited connection to the clients. If 10 or 100 objects start opening a connection and none of them are returning back their connection, the database performance itself will go down. The next one is, you may have something in your cache. If you expect that, okay, during the garbage collection, the cache, whatever I kept it in the cache memory will go to the file and everything will be stored. If everything goes fine, nothing will happen. From the cache, the things may go down. But if suddenly power fails, then whatever that is there in the cache is lost. Remember, when that happens, you are in much bigger trouble. When your code is executing, and if the power fail occurs or anything occurs, you may have this rollback point that is set in your code, and you may roll back and restart all over again. But when your object goes out of scope, it means to everyone that everything went properly and everybody has settled. So all your triggers and all this rollback scenario, the 2-phase rollback, 3-phase, whatever the number of phases you have, everything has gone properly when it's a time that you are supposed to save it. Now the problem is you are lazy and you kept your content in the cache, power failed. Then you are in much bigger trouble because everybody others have agreed that they are going to persist their data and you are the only one who are in big trouble. So this is whenever you have, whenever you feel that you are playing with a critical resource, force a garbage collector or force a destructor so that you settle your work. Then maybe memory is not released, that is up to the CLR. Let it take care of it. How do I do that thing? How to call the predictable destructor? Now to call the one, Remember, this iDisposable has only one method called as dispose. There is only one method inside it. You have to call it. Garbage collector won't call it. It is you who have to call it. Okay, because it is predictable, you have to predict when it has to be called. Garbage collector won't call anything. Okay, so when you feel that okay, my object is going out of scope and it's a time when everything has to be closed down, just call dispose method. This method is available, this signature is available in the iDisposable interface. So implement that particular thing. So for example, you may have bank account, implement this iDisposable interface. Then then what you need to do is you have to just call this dispose method. There is only one method which is available under this interface. Just implement that thing. Okay, that's the only thing you have to do it. Then call it at appropriate time. Now in this example, there is a private boolean variable that is used to prevent the destructor from calling the disposable again and again. So for example, once you call the dispose method, you may close the connection with the database. Suppose if you are not very careful, if somebody else again calls it, what will happen is again this will go to the database and say close the connection. Then the database will say how many times will you expect me to close the connection? I've already closed the connection. Somebody came before you and they have asked me to close it. So you don't want the same routine to be continued by some others. You may have a multi-thread or anything. So how do you prevent it? It's like a semaphore that you are using. So you just say dispose this false. That means it is not a dispose. Then in this dispose method, this is the override method. This is the method that is available under that interface. Just check whether it is not disposed. If the object is not disposed, then release all the connection to the database or close all the files and do anything. Then you just set it as true. The very important thing, next thing you have to do is tell the garbage collector, do not call your disposer. I have done my work. Don't try to overdo it again. So how do I say that thing? Garbage collector, GC is an object directly available. Suppress the finalize method on this. Don't call your finalize method on my object. I have done it. If you forget this step, what will happen is garbage collector will, even though you have finalized, you have removed everything, garbage collector will still think that I'm supposed to clear this object. Then it will start doing something else and you will end up in a mess. Now remember, this method has to be called automatically by you. So what does that mean? From all the means you must see to it that this method is called. One of the best place where you can put this method is in the destructor itself. Suppose nobody calls this method, then let the garbage collector itself call this method. Remember, garbage collector will call this method. So what you are doing is, when the garbage collector calls the destructor, you say that call this dispose method. It goes to the dispose method, and in the dispose method, you are just telling the garbage collector, okay, I've done my work, you stop your work, then it will stop. So this is what is the destructor. I will stop.